I want you to give a huge round of applause for our next performer. Give it up for Ron Swallow.
Hi, guys. Before I do my stories about my love life, I'm basically giving you a condensed version of the 3 big loves, all right? And but before I do that, I do have to set up all of my bad decisions by explaining a short, even shorter version of my terrible childhood. So, first, my real mom abandoned me. Then I lived with a stepmom and a dad. Then, at 16, my dad abandoned me. He wanted to move to Texas, and I didn't want to move, and then he was like, fine, stay here, and then he left, which I don't know if you know this, but apparently adults are not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be like, get in a car, you're going to Texas. But he did not. Instead, I took care of myself, and then eventually, I met this girl who was nice and smart. She's literally probably one of the smartest, funniest people I've ever met, while also simultaneously being the meanest person I had ever met. But I didn't know that till later. So we eventually started dating, and it was going great. And then she was like, hey, what do you think about marriage? And I was like, I'm cool with marriage. And then she was like, cool, maybe we should get married. And I was 22 years old. And I don't know if you've ever been 22 years old, but you should not get married. You are fucking stupid. And if you're 22 right now and you were insulted that I just called you fucking stupid, wait for about 10 years. And then you'll be like, yep, I am stupid. I was stupid. I'm a little less stupid now. And you still will feel more stupid when you get into your 40s, just a little less stupid than when you were 22. So I do say yes. When her parents cried when they heard we were getting married, yeah, not out of joy, but because I'm an atheist and she's Catholic. Actually, her mom technically is Catholic, but she also goes to a Pentecostal church, the handling snakes one, because Jesus told her to go to one of those churches, but also to stay Catholic at the same time. It's all very confusing. She did not like that we were getting married. And they didn't want to go to our wedding if it was at, like, a non-denominational place, per se, or at a weird church, because I was going to get married at this weird-ass church. It's a religious science church. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's not quite a cult, and it's not Scientology, and I don't have time to explain it to you. But we didn't get married there, and so I was calling churches all over the place, and none of them would respond positively. Like, I called a couple Christian churches, and they were like, oh, you have to get Christian counseling, and I was like, no, we do not. We're not going there. Catholic church was like, hey, are you Catholic? I was like, nope. And they're like, well, you can't get married here. And I was like, I called a Jewish church, and they were like, absolutely not. And so then I called a friend who's a family lawyer, and I was like, do you know a good judge? And she was like, yes. And so we got married in the criminal court in Santa Fe, New Mexico. So, yeah, it was a good time. And I will say this, the first 4 years of marriage were actually pretty good. Mostly because somebody stayed with me. That was pretty exciting. I don't know if you've ever been abandoned and then someone stays with you, but it's wonderful. So that part was great. And then I just noticed that she was mean all the time. We would get in arguments, and some of the arguments were like downright crazy. Like one time I came home and we lived in a studio apartment on Sherman Way in Lancashire. If you've ever been there, it's like 100 degrees every single day of the year. And she was like, you motherfucker. I can't believe you made it so hot here. I naturally assumed we were having an irrational argument contest. So I blamed her for the death of all the unicorns. I won, but barely. Then we got in this big fight. This is about 8 years into it. And we got in this fight, and I had told her everything that bothers me so that she knew, because I figured if someone knew the things that would bother you, they wouldn't do them to you, right? That's not true at all. And again, I wasn't very confident, and at this point I finally started to get confidence, and I realized in every fight that we'd ever had that she would do something that she knew bothered me. And after this fight gets settled, I go, do you do mean things on purpose to me? In fights to make me mad? And she was like, yeah. And I was like, well, you need to stop doing that. And then she said, this is the weirdest quote I've ever heard from a person in this type of conversation. She said, I don't think I can do that at this time. Are we in a business meeting? What is happening? So then I almost divorced her right then at Christmas at her parents' house. But then I waited a few weeks and then divorced her. Man, I don't know if you've ever been divorced. Whew. It's terrible. It's terrible. You feel like a failure. I took like a year off and hung out with my cats. It was crazy. And like I said, she was super smart and funny. And then I was like, I've got to not date a person like that. So the next person I dated she was not smart, but she was also the nicest person I'd ever met. And so she also smoked more pot than any person I'd ever met in my entire life, inside of her house with no windows open. And I have never done drugs or drank or smoked. I guess I should mention earlier that if you met my dad, you would understand why I don't do any of those things. You'd be like, yeah, because everybody was like, hey, you're just like your dad. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get drunk and hit people? That sounds bad. I'll skip that. I went straight to the, 12-step program, or at least I would have been. And anyways, so she was very nice. But also, she wasn't as nice as I realized because one time she talked to me for an hour and a half straight about weed, knowing that I did not smoke weed. And during that entire time, I did not say a word. And at the end of the conversation, she goes, this is a great conversation. And I'm like, that is not how a conversation works. You just gave me a TED Talk on weed. That was not a conversation. And I don't know if you've ever lived in a house with real stoners, and I don't mean like someone who smokes like even 2 times a day or 3 times a day. I mean, they would get up, her and her best friend, and they would smoke weed the second they got up. And then before they ate, they would smoke more weed. And then they would eat some food. And after you eat food, you clearly need to smoke more weed. So then they would smoke weed literally all waking hours of the day. It was wild. I don't even know how they had enough money to do it. They were bartenders. And they were both very hot. So you get tips if you're hot. I don't know if you know that. But so I was like, hey, why don't we move out to our own place? I will build you a patio for you to smoke weed upon. So it's not inside the house. Because I don't mind people smoking weed. That doesn't bother me. I don't give a shit about that. I just don't like breathing it in all day long. And then she was like, well, we have to have a TV. I was like, yeah, I'll put a TV out there. I'll even sit out there with you as long as we're outside. And then she was like, well, my best friend has to be in the same apartment complex. And I'm like, I don't know how we're going to do this. And so she did not want to do any of that. I tried to be cool about it. I realized that we weren't having any interesting conversations and that maybe going for the person who was not very smart and wasn't exactly sure how the moon worked was not a good idea to date. So broke up with her. Yeah, like we had a conversation about she was confused. She thought the moon literally just disappeared. And I don't even know how to have a conversation about that. So, but I mentioned how nice she was and hot. She was nice and hot. And I'm a weird looking dude, so. And then the funny part is the ending is real good here because I actually met the girl I ended up with while I was still dating this girl, but we just met as friends. I went to a comic book convention. She was dressed as Harley Quinn, and she needed her, what are those things called where they squeeze your, that's it, corset, like tightened. So I helped with it. She was with one of my friends, so then we became friends, and we were just sort of peripheral karaoke singer friends. You know what I mean? And I don't know if you've ever been to sing karaoke, but it's awesome. You should just do that. That's just an aside. It's really fun. It gives you confidence, even if you're not good at it. It's great. So then I've spent some time away from dating. I'm starting to like myself. It's pretty great. But I did get on the Tinder. I don't know if you've ever been on Tinder. And it shouldn't work this way. I see how disappointed you are. And I don't blame you. You should be disappointed, but it worked out, so it's okay. So then she comes up and we match. And, you know, I'm like, yeah, sweet. She's cute. She likes nerdy stuff. This is going to be fun. And then she messages me and is like, I don't know if we should go on a date because, you know, I was sort of friends with your ex. And it'd been 2 years at this point since we'd broken up. And I said, well, how about we just go on one date, see if we get along, and then if we do, great. And if we don't, you don't have to say nothing. Nobody knows anything. We can just move on. We go on a date, and it's the best date I've ever had. We go to karaoke. She's a great singer. The conversation is fantastic. She's smart and nice. What the fuck is happening? And then we've been in a relationship for 6 years now. I'm engaged. Yeah, she's wonderful. And I just kind of want to talk about this. You mentioned the fights from earlier, and the fights with this other girl, she would just forget things that we had conversations about, so I don't even know how to, you know, that wasn't like, you'd be like, you did this, and she was like, I did? I don't even remember. It's like, okay, I don't know what to do here. And so, but this girl, like, when we have a fight with disagreement, she's like, you did this, and it upset me. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'll try not to do it again. And then the argument is over. And it's fucking wild. Because that's so weird. And she thinks she's being an asshole, by the way, because she just disagreed with me. And by the way, I got to thank any of you. I'm sure you people here aren't like this, but all those bad guys out there, thank you so much for making my mediocre ass look amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it. Because the only thing I have to do to be better than her last boyfriend is not make out with her mom. Yeah. Yeah, the last dude she dated tried to kiss her mom. Yeah. I can't even make shit like that up. Thank you, comedy gods. You know, so basically, I just want to say this. Take your time. If you're single right now and you're thinking this shit's not going to work out, don't worry about it. Just go out and be yourself. You'll find someone who's smart and nice, who, you know, has real arguments with you. So, thank you guys.